My name is Reverend Ben Jamison. I am the associate minister here, and whether or not you're online or in the house, here for the first time or here many times over, it's my privilege to welcome you to Centers for Spiritual Living here in Fort Lauderdale. At CSL, we have 7 core values that guide all that we do. Those 7 values are love, healing, oneness, abundance, spiritual growth, service, and diversity. This week, we're focusing on the core value of diversity. So, of course, diversity without inclusion is kind of empty. Well, the thing that I know of that is the most inclusive thing ever in existence is that unconditional presence of love that we call Spirit. That presence that birthed each and every one of us and loves us unconditionally, not in spite of our diversity, but because of it. So whether it's our age, our race, our gender, our orientation, our sex, who we love, how we love, the size of our bank accounts or our bodies, it doesn't matter. We are all included in that unconditional loving, and we're birthed with that as our divine nature. Now, when we bring that divine nature down into our humanness, it can sometimes get a little muddy, right? We put our familial relationships and our friendships on that, and it gets a little more sketchy. We add then our intimate, loving sexual relationships as well, and it gets a little bit difficult to navigate how to harmonize all of that loving and all of those different aspects of our life. When we add the diversity of our own experience as well on top of that, based on how we were born, who we were born, where we were born, and the society messages that we received, it can become even more challenging. That's why Dr. Chris has created his class for gay men called Sex, Love, and the Gay Male, to help address the specific experiences of that amazing part of our diverse community around harmonizing love, sex, relationships, your self-love, all of it. So, if you are a gay male, and want a little bit more harmony in all aspects of your relationships, join Dr. Chris next Saturday here from 11 to 3. You can be in the house or online. It's $40. You can sign up in the lobby or at cslftl.org. If you know somebody who would benefit from being able to engage in this work and find greater harmony, you can pick up a postcard in the lobby as well, deliver that to somebody personally this week, and give them a personal invitation to join Dr. Chris. In doing so, we serve not only the diverse community that we already are, but are including the community all around us. So friends, whether this is right for you, whether you sign up or not, regardless of who you are or how you show up, thank you for being part of the diversity of this amazing community and for letting everybody that you know that not in spite of their unique expression, but because of their unique expression, we can't wait to meet them and welcome them home here. Thank you for celebrating and exploring diversity with me this week. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So it's January 31st. I've been your associate minister for a full month now. Yeah, it's been a great month. Thank you. It's been a great month, and I've had the opportunity to meet many of you in the house, not any of you online yet, unfortunately, but we want to make sure that we get more connection going. So next Sunday, after service in the community room and on Zoom, we're going to do a meet and greet with me. So please join us if you're in the house, 12 to 1 in the community room. If you're online, get the Zoom online. We're just going to have a conversation. You can ask me questions. We'll chit-chat, get to know each other a little bit more, and just build some good friendship there. So please join me for that next week from 12 to 1 immediately after service. We are at the end of January, which means we're wrapping up our exploration of the book of the month, Spiritual Fitness, by Carolyn Reynolds. And the last chapter of that book is entitled Holding Your Power and Living with Joy. So we're going to look at that today, but before we jump in, it's really important what we mean by holding your power. So much of what we talk about in this philosophy is that a circulation, a flow, is what brings increase. That if we hold on to something, we don't get more of it, but what we get stagnates. Whereas if we flow, if we circulate, if we give our love and our joy and our gratitude and our appreciation and our service, it flows back to us. So what we're not talking about here is hoarding. We're not hoarding our power. We're talking about holding our power more in terms of energetic hygiene, in terms of looking at what are the things in our life that tend to leak that power without our awareness so that we can plug those leaks and have more of that power available for living with joy. So we're going to look at two things. This is going to sound real sales pitchy, but just stick with me here. Two things happening in your life right now that's draining your power that you have no idea of and how to fix it. All for $19.95. No, I'm kidding. We're going to look at those two things that are happening to all of us right now that drain our power, how we can help to plug those leaks so that we have more of that power available to live consciously in circulating that power for a life lived with joy. And then we'll look at some strategies for living life with joy as well. The first thing that's going on in your life right now that's stealing your power, that you may not be aware of it, is stuff. Yes, physical things, stuff. John Roger, who founded the movement of spiritual inner awareness in California, says this. He says, you don't need all that clutter you're holding on to. Get rid of it now because it is stealing your energy. So let's look at that word clutter. How many of you have ever looked around at your life and thought, man, life just feels too cluttered right now? You just get this feeling of life being cluttered, and then you take a look at your space and notice that your space is a little cluttered, so you clean up your space and life feels less cluttered, right? Have you had a similar experience to this? You see, the things in our environment end up determining how we feel, and so if we have clutter in our experience, our life feels cluttered. Here's another great example of how stuff steals your energy. Imagine taking a drive here in southern Florida or wherever you are in the world at 5:30 in the morning on a Saturday. Now imagine taking that exact same drive at 8:30 in the morning on a Monday. Which drive are you going to end feeling more exhausted? Clearly the one in rush hour traffic, right? Why? Because there's more traffic to pay attention to. Traffic is made up of cars. Cars are stuff. And the more stuff there is around us, the more that stuff, by its very presence, pulls our attention. And by pulling our attention, it's pulling our energy. So if we have too much stuff in our environment, our energy is leaking because it's pulling our attention without us even being aware of it or intending it. The other thing about our stuff, we say in this philosophy all the time, you can create whatever you want. And that's absolutely true. What we don't talk about often enough, though, is that whatever you create, you have to maintain. And so if we have unintentionally created a lot of stuff that is stealing our energy by pulling our attention, and we're also maintaining that, you ever been asked the question, do you own your stuff or does your stuff own you? Good question to ask. If we've got a lot of stuff and we're not able to invest the power to maintain it, then that stuff owns us. It's taking away from us more than we're getting from it. So the easy thought is, well, great, I'll just spend less time maintaining my stuff, right? Then I'll have more energy because I'm not maintaining stuff all the time. You remember that whole cluttered experience? If we don't maintain the stuff that we created and it falls into disrepair, then we're going to see disrepair in our lives all around us and start to experience our life as in disrepair. So rather, we want to be really conscious about the stuff that we have and the stuff that we keep. We want to get rid of the stuff that is not serving us in our highest good. Now, it's easy to say get rid of stuff, right? But that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. The good thing is there's a lot of support that we can find in that. I don't know if you guys touched into the Marie Kondo craze a few years ago. She had a fantastic book called The Art of Tidying Up. And in that, she asks a bunch of questions that can really help us determine whether or not we should keep the things that we have or release those to their next highest good. The first of those questions that I want to share with you today is this. Is this bringing me joy? Is the stuff that I have in my life bringing me joy? If it's not, maybe I should consider lovingly releasing it. Thank you for all of the good you have brought to my life, stuff, whatever you are. I appreciate you, and I lovingly release you to your next highest good, whatever that is, whether it's recycling or taking it to Goodwill or giving it away. Funny thing, we're talking about living with joy as well, yes? So if we go through all of our stuff and ask the question, is this bringing me joy, and get rid of the things that aren't bringing me joy, then the stuff is going to be helping me live a life of joy. Amazing how synergistic this spirituality thing can be, right? So we ask ourselves that question. It's not bringing me joy, consider letting it go. Of course, even if something doesn't bring us joy, sometimes we can have a little bit more of an emotional attachment to stuff, right? The second question is the kicker for me. This one will always get me to let go of something that is not mine to hold on to. That question is this. Is this something I want to carry forward into my future? It's a weighty question, right? Yeah, I heard a couple wows out there. Yeah. You think about it. When we're talking about physical stuff, that carry forward helps us be in mind of the actual physical weight of having to carry it. Do I want it into my future puts me in mind of what is the future experience that I want, and then is this thing serving me? And also carrying forward, meaning what is the energetic cost to me of keeping this thing in my life, and do I really want to pay it? If it doesn't bring me joy, and I don't want to pay the emotional, physical, and energetic cost of keeping this thing around, and I lovingly release it, then I'm going to be plugging those holes that are leaking my energy so I have more energy to constantly live with joy, and all of the stuff around me will be supporting me in that. Side note, this question, is this something I want to carry forward into my future, works really great with habits, thoughts, and relationships as well. It's not just about stuff, friends. Is this thing, whatever it is, something I want to carry forward into my future? Good question to ask. So, step one, easy, right? Just get rid of all the stuff that we don't like. No problem. The problem is, though, that I've just set you up for the second of the big things that is stealing your energy without your awareness. And those are incomplete cycles of action. What's an incomplete cycle of action? How many people have 2 or 3 books lying around your house that you started reading but never finished reading? Or a series on Netflix that you're going to get back to at some point? Or maybe you decided to clean out the spice cabinet but never really got around to it. So what happens with that, right? You're cooking dinner, you go to get a spice, you can't find the spice because your spice cabinet is cluttered with old spices you don't use. My spice cabinet is cluttered with old spices I don't use. This is a personal story. And so you say, well, I got to do this at some point, but not right now. And then a little while later you think, oh yeah, I got to clean out that spice cabinet, but I'm busy, I'll do it later. And then you're reading a book and the book says something about cinnamon, and so you say, oh yeah, that spice cabinet. So you put down the book unfinished, go to the spice cabinet, open it up and say, it's too much, I'm not going to do it right now. Every single time that we commit to doing something or start doing something and do not finish it, that remains as an incomplete cycle of action in our subconscious, and our subconscious mind continues to remind us of it over and over and over and over and over again. And every single time that happens, that's a little pull on our power. That's a little drain of our energy. And it tends to create more of itself. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You're starting to read that book, you see the thing about cinnamon, you put the book down, now you've got an incomplete cycle of action with the book and the spice cabinet. What we want to do, friends, is we want to take the time to look around at our lives and see where all of these incomplete cycles of action are and complete them. There's really 2 ways to do that, and they're both fairly simple. The first one is just to do the thing that we set out to do in the first place. Sometimes it's something simple, like finishing a book. Sometimes it's something that might take a lot more effort, like cleaning out a storage unit. If it seems too big to do all at once, take an hour every night that you're not watching Netflix, do the thing until it's done. Once you complete that thing that you set out to do, it's no longer going to be in your subconscious mind. It's no longer going to be pulling your energy. The other way to do it is just to call it done as it is without actually finishing it. It's amazing, right? We can renegotiate our agreements with ourselves. Did you ever realize you could do that? So you have a book that you've started to read and you're 3 chapters in and you know you're not going to finish it. Well, pick up that book, take the bookmark out, close it, I am complete with this book, and put it back on your shelf. Your subconscious mind will hear that. It will stop reminding you to try to read that book. And then later on, when it is the right time and you see that book on your shelf, you'll pick it up and read it. If it's something bigger, like cleaning out a storage unit, guys, we just got to be aware of what our capacity is and be kind to ourselves, right? Ben, great intention to clean out that storage unit, but you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm just not. I'm too busy. I've got too much going on. It's too much stress for me to think about trying to fit this in, so I'm calling it complete without ever touching the project. I'll put a note on my calendar 6 months down the road, check in, see if I want to do it then. But for now, it's done, it's complete, it's no longer pulling on my energy. We want to make sure that we plug up as many energy leaks as we can so that we have as much power to consciously circulate towards living a life with joy. If we go through all of our stuff and look at, does it bring me joy, and is it something I want to carry forward into my future, and get rid of that stuff that doesn't answer those questions appropriately, it's not going to be pulling our attention, we're not going to be having to maintain it, and everything that we do with the stuff that we have will help us live with a life of joy. Simple, easy, practical spirituality is amazing, right? So living a life with joy, right? It's got to be about more than just stuff, right? It certainly is. Rabindranath Tagore has, for me, one of the best sayings about living with joy. He says this: I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. If we want to live with joy, we need to live with a serviceful attitude. We need to live with a mindset of serving others. That's why service is one of the core values here, because it is so important in living a life that is filled with joy. Of course, we're not serving to get, right? It's not like, hey, I'm going to serve you so I can get more joy, and I'm going to serve you so I can get more joy, and I'm going to serve you so I can get more joy. Now, where's my joy? That's not the type of service we're talking about. We're talking about serving others because we recognize that there's only one life. This life is the perfect presence of Spirit expressing as me and as everybody else, and by God, I want that life to feel seen and heard and loved and valued, and so I'm going to serve you because I love you, and I want you to feel seen and loved and heard and valued. That service can be big. It can be babysitting for a friend for free because they need a night out. It can be taking care of a sick relative. It can be something small like holding the door for somebody, or waving a thank you to the person who let you in traffic, or maybe slowing down to let somebody else merge in front of you in traffic. It can be like sending a silent blessing to somebody as you pass them in the morning. Good morning. So nice to see you. I love you, sweet Spirit. I hope you have a day that is so filled with love and joy that you can't even stand it. Try sending that to everybody you pass by subconsciously. Not vocalize it, because that might get you a bit of an odd experience in the world, but just intentionally, internally send that blessing and see how much joy comes into your life from living that service. Now, there is a problem with just focusing on service, right? It's kind of a cliche, but you can't pour from an empty cup. We've heard this, yes? If we give all of our time serving to others, where is the time left for us? We have to be bold enough to actually put ourselves first. Society doesn't want us to do that. Society suggests that we should sacrifice ourselves, not in a good way, but in a way of putting ourselves so far behind everybody else that we burn out so that we can somehow serve others and be viewed as a good person because we damaged ourselves and our own joy for other people. That's not the way this works, friends. If we don't stop and take the time to take care of ourselves, to refill that cup, we cannot serve anybody else. We get to burnout. Anybody ever walked into a room and by walking into that room just feel your energy collapse? Right? You ever walk into a room and because you're in that room felt your energy rise up and just feel more excited and joyful? Question for you. The room where you felt joyful, do you expect the people in that room took time to take care of themselves? And in the room where you felt the drag on your energy, do you expect those people were burned out? The Dalai Lama says it this way. He says, if you feel burnout setting in, if you feel demoralized or exhausted, it is best for the sake of everyone to withdraw and restore yourself. If we don't withdraw and restore ourselves, we're contributing to that energy in the room that drags everybody else down. We have to be willing to put ourselves first, so that we can refill our cup, so that we can serve others and continue to have that experience of joy. So how do we know what to do to refill our own cup? Friends, it's crazy. What do you enjoy? What brings you joy? In order to refill your own cup, you serve yourself. You find the thing that brings you joy, which refills your cup so you have more energy so you can serve others. What do you enjoy? Yes, I'm suggesting that you be self-serving. Be very spiritually self-serving. Find the thing that brings you joy and consciously, intentionally engage with that as a way of serving yourself so that you can refresh your energy and serve other people. And in so doing, you're serving yourself and having an experience of joy. You're serving others and having an experience of joy. And it's all about living with joy. For me, play is one of those ways that I recharge and refresh myself. Anybody ever been to a trampoline park? Pre-COVID, I went to one a couple of times. Okay, it's a room bigger than this. The floor is completely made of trampolines. The walls are trampolines canted at the sides, and you just go and jump on trampolines for an hour. I went, but I took my inner 6-year-old with me. And I said, hey, 6-year-old Ben, you want to go jump for an hour with an adult body that has adult strength? And he said, uh-huh. I had my fancy watch track the calories. I burned almost 1,000 calories in that hour. And I was so energized, so refreshed, so filled with joy because I gave myself that play. Adult Ben's body needed a chiropractor afterwards, but it filled me with joy so that I could go serve other people. So find the ways, friends, find the things that you enjoy. Consciously engage with those to fill your cup so that you can pour out that cup to serve others. And when we get really good at this, the cup never empties. We're constantly filling and constantly pouring and living with joy in the process. The last thing I want to share with you today comes from Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. This is another one of my favorite quotes. He says, joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God. So when we talk about living with joy, we're talking about living with the presence of God. When we talk about there being one life that birthed the universe, we call it spirit, we call it God, we call it love, we call it creativity, whatever it is that works for you to call it that, that's who and what you are. So living with joy is living with yourself. It's finding that divine presence within you wherever you are. It's finding that divine presence in the other people as you serve them. It's finding that divine presence in the trampoline park, at the beach, playing stupid video games online with my brother in LA whenever I can. Whatever the thing is that brings you joy, there too you find the presence of God. It has been a phenomenal month with you this month, exploring spiritual fitness. I look forward to all of the exploration that we get to do next month, and the month after that, and the month after that. Because being in service here brings me joy, refills my cup so that I can serve you and find even more joy. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. Have a fantastic week. Namaste. Thank you. You know, another way that we can find some joy and connect with that infallible sign of the presence of God is through sitting in the silence. Not to get anything, but simply for the pure bliss of being in the silence. And so we have an opportunity now in our service to sit in that silence together for a few moments. So I invite you to find yourself comfortable in your chair with your feet flat on the floor. Allow your eyes to close and allow the sound of spirit through the musicians to help bring you into that centered space.
I breathe out, I breathe in, I am still, I go within. When I quiet my mind, in the stillness I find. Spirit meets me there, Spirit meets me there.
So as we breathe into that centered heart space, remembering that joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God, and that as God is the only thing in existence everywhere, it must be existing as me, which means that joy is right where I am. Joy is my divine nature. It is my divine birthright. Knowing this, it means that all the things that I do in the physical world to bring myself an experience of joy are really about reminding myself that joy is my natural state. And so in this moment, in this time of silence and contemplation, I put my attention on the limitless joy at the center of my being, basking in it, feeling grateful for it, and in the silence, allowing that joy to support and fill every bit of my being. breathing that joy into our body, breathing it into every cell, into every thought, into every experience. We give gratitude for this opportunity to be together in spiritual practice, knowing that in spirit there is no separation, there is no space, and so whether we engage in this practice in the house or online, we are all one. And in that, we find the joy of community, diversity, love, togetherness. Thank you, sweet Spirit. Taking another deep breath, feeling yourself back in your body, back on your chair, allowing your fingers and toes to maybe wiggle a little bit. And whenever you're ready, open your eyes and be here now.
Stillness I find. Spirit meets me there. Spirit meets me there.
We have affirmation cards for you on your chairs. We like to finish up our service with an affirmation and a prayer. Funny thing about these cards being printed this way, they're really easy to take home and put on your fridge so you can work with this affirmation all week long. Let's say this affirmation together. Ready? Joy is at the center of my being. It is my natural state. And so let's take a moment to turn our attention within. In a moment of affirmative prayer as we focus on the one presence and one power that birthed the universe. That perfect divine expression of life, love, and joy that is all that there is, living as each and every one of us. Knowing that that life is my life. And that as such I have full access to the complete creative capacity of the universe, I proclaim for myself and everybody this week a life lived with joy. I know that our natural state is joy, and that everything that we do and every way we express this week brings us that joy, brings us a reminder that joy is who and what we are. Whether it's the beautiful sky, whether it's the trees, whether it's a smile from a friend, whether it's somebody holding the door or letting us into traffic, whatever it might be. Within every single experience that we have this week is the possibility of being reminded that joy is our natural state. And in this reminding, knowing that the presence and power of love itself is with us in this expression this week, I know that all the opportunities present themselves in joy and that we grab hold of all of them. Living that joy, sharing that joy, feeling that joy. For all of this, for knowing that this, or something even greater, is already guaranteed, I simply release and let go. In joy and gratitude and appreciation, I allow it to be. Thank you, sweet Spirit, and thank you myself for stepping into joy this week. And so it is. Amen. Thank you for joining us here at CSL and online. If you're online or if you're in the house and you found anything beneficial from today, make sure to share the service on Facebook, because if you found something beneficial, it's a good bet that somebody else will too. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful week. We will see you next week in the house and online, 10 o'clock for meditation, 10:30 for service. Thanks, everybody. Have a phenomenal week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching, and thanks for supporting CSL. If you'd like to know more about us, check us out on our website or social media. Blessings.